All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to unlock two kinds of archives, and you'll be surprised what they tell us about the secrets we all keep.
So, what do the CIA, Edgar Allan Poe, and Dracula have in common? I know, it sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke, right? But the answer, well, it shows this incredible connection between how we file away our official history and how we write our worst nightmares. So yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the official secret keepers. We're talking about the massive, and I mean massive, bureaucratic machine that governments use to manage all their secrets.
So you've got these huge institutions, right? The FBI has its vault, the CIA has its CREST system, and we are talking about millions of pages of once secret documents now available to the public. And once a document is deemed historically important, it gets sent to its final resting place, the National Archives, or NARA.
So you might be wondering, how do I actually get my hands on this stuff? Well, there are basically two main ways to do it. Think of the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, like a big fishing net. You cast it wide when you're looking for info on a general topic. But if you know exactly what classified document you're after, you use the Mandatory Declassification Review, or MDR. That's not a net, that's a surgeon's scalpel. It's super precise, and it has a really powerful appeals process if they tell you no at first.
And this table, it just perfectly shows how complex this whole thing is. This isn't just about asking for a file. It's this incredibly structured system. The FBI literally sorts your request based on how many pages it is. So an extra small request, you might get that back pretty quick, but an extra large one, we're talking years. The main takeaway here is that this is a world built on rules, records, and just a mountain of paper.
Okay, so it's all rules and bureaucracy. But what happens when the things in those official files start to sound, well, a little less than official? This is where it gets really interesting. Because tucked away, right there between the normal reports on counterterrorism and policy memos, you find these other files. The ones that don't really fit into neat categories. The ones filed under unexplained phenomenon.
Yep, you heard that right. Take this file on extrasensory perception, ESP. For 3 whole years, between 1957 and 1960, the FBI, the same guys with all the processing tracks and rules, were officially investigating whether psychics could be used for espionage. So, in the end, the Bureau's conclusion was, nope, no scientific support here, and they dropped it. But that's not the important part. The key thing is that for a brief moment, the truly strange and the officially scientific crossed paths, and the record of that meeting got filed away, becoming this permanent and frankly, very weird part of our official history.
And don't think this is just some weird Cold War flashback. This is happening right now. In 2024, Congress actually mandated that all government records on UAPs, that's unidentified anomalous phenomena, get sent over to the National Archives. And get this, the law says there's a presumption of immediate disclosure. It just goes to show you the official system is still having to make space for things it just can't explain.
So the official archive, this rigid system of rules, has to literally bend and stretch to hold these unexplained things. But what about secrets that aren't just unexplained? What about the ones that are just too big, too ugly, or too widespread to ever fit in a classified file? Well, that's when we turn to a totally different kind of archive, our shadow archive, horror fiction.
Let's take a look at a modern example, the Netflix series The Fall of the House of Usher. Now, on the surface, it's based on Edgar Allan's work, it's all ghosts and gothic curses, but it's not just that. It's actually a symbolic record of a horror that is very real and very modern.
So in the story, the whole Usher family fortune is built on this corrupt pharmaceutical company. They knowingly push a super addictive opioid called Ligadone onto an unsuspecting public. They dump corrosive waste, they cover up their crimes, and their greed causes thousands and thousands of deaths. It's a classic gothic horror story that's really serving as an archive for the real-world horror of the opioid crisis. It takes all that corporate greed and public suffering and translates it into the language of monsters and curses.
And what's so wild is that this is not a new idea. We've been telling these kinds of stories for ages. I mean, look at Dracula. When Bela Lugosi first appeared on screen way back in 1931, people didn't just see a supernatural monster. No, critics at the time saw him as a clear metaphor for a sanguinary capitalist, a corrupt aristocrat from the old world, literally draining the lifeblood and the capital from the working class.
Okay, so horror gives us this language, this archive for the secrets that just won't fit in a government vault. But what does that mean for us today?
We're living in an age where our biggest fears might not be a ghost in the attic, but a digital ghost in the machine. Or, data vampires who are after our personal information.
And back in the real world, that official archive we talked about, it's in crisis. Seriously. The amount of digital information we create is so overwhelming that it's led to this problem they call overclassification. We are literally creating secrets faster than we could ever hope to declassify them.
So, when we're faced with that kind of crazy complexity, what's our first instinct? We turn to tech, right? I mean, look at this quote. It's a bit nerdy, but it's about drafting a script to automatically manage your audio while you're gaming. Whether it's something simple like that or an app that runs your whole schedule, we're constantly creating these little digital ghosts to manage the machinery of our lives for us.
And that brings us full circle, right back to the government. Because the big proposed solution for this overclassification crisis is, yep, you guessed it, automation. There's a new bipartisan bill on the table that aims to create a huge, federated technology solution to automatically classify and one day declassify all of our national secrets. Which leaves us with one last big question. We've seen how both the official government archive and Horror's Shadow Archive are really just reflections of what a society is afraid of and what it's trying to hide. So, as we get ready to hand the keys to our secret archives over to these automated systems, you have to wonder, what new monsters are we creating in the process? Are we building digital ghosts that might just lose our history in a server glitch? Or are we creating new kinds of data vampires, ones that hoard secrets we can't even begin to understand, let alone ever hope to control?